We're saying, hey, we want a Christian government. We want a Christian government. We want a majority white country. We want nationalism. We're okay with authoritarianism. We're not ideological. These are the things we want. And we're going to call out people that are betraying those things. We're going to call out the phonies that pretend to represent those things. We're like the immovable right-wing force in politics. But that's why we need dictatorship. That's unironically why we need to get rid of all that. We need to take control of the media or take control of the government and force the people to believe what we believe, or force them to play by our rules and reshape the society. This is why it's Christian nationalism. We need a government of Christians. Tell me why we need people in government that don't serve Jesus Christ. Is that the argument? Well, here, Nick, here's why we need Jewish people in government that don't serve Jesus. Sorry, you're never going to win that argument. And Jewish people can be here, but they can't make our laws. We have got to talk about the fundamentals of our worldview and what it would look like to build a society based on our distinct worldview. It looks like a society where women don't have the right to vote. And it looks like a society where boys and girls get married as teenagers and start having kids, and they don't use birth control, and they don't use contraceptives, and they have big families and a high birth rate. And it looks like women wearing veils at church, and it looks like women not being in the workforce. So that means that banning gay marriage is back on the menu, banning sodomy is back on the menu, banning contraceptives is back on the menu, and basically we're having something like Taliban rule in America, in a good way. We're having something like a Catholic Taliban rule in America. No, man, if Antifa were marching down the streets and they were waving the banner of Benito Mussolini or Francisco Franco, I'd be joining them. Oh yeah? Well, fuck the UN and the internet and democracy, okay? What do you think about that? You know what democracy has given us? Obesity, low rates of literacy. It's given us divorce, abortion, gay marriage, liberalism, pornography. That's what democracy has given us. Ghettos and crime and political correctness, diversity. Yeah, track record of democracy, not so good. Catholic autocracy, pretty strong record. Catholic monarchy and just war and crusades and inquisitions, pretty good stuff. You got to recognize the fact that this is a godless country. I hate it. It's immoral, it's wrong, it's heinous, it's evil, but this is an evil country. And I hate to burst anybody's bubble, but there is simply no evidence that there is a silent majority. There is no evidence of this. There are too many non-white people in the country, frankly, for that to be the case. The country's 40% non-white, and like 80% of them are liberal, okay? And out of the white people, it's like 60-40. You do the math on that. There's not enough of us, okay? Now, that's not a total black pill because this isn't a democracy, and we don't want it to be. So it's not the end. There are other ways, and I can elaborate on that later if people want me to, but that's a whole other discussion, really. But the point is, when you look at these things like abortion, it's popular. People like abortion, hate it, but it's true. And you can thank the Jewish media for that. Abortion's popular. Sodomy's popular, being gay is popular, being a feminist is popular, sex out of wedlock is popular, contraceptives it's all popular. That's not to say it's good, that's not to say I like that. Popular means the people support it, which they do. And it sucks and it is what it is, but that's why we need dictatorship. That's unironically why we need to get rid of all that. We need to take control of the media or take control of the government and force the people to believe what we believe, or force them to play by our rules and reshape the society.
The reason I wouldn't call myself a white nationalist, it's not because I don't see the necessity for white people to have a homeland and for white people to have a country. It's because I think that kind of terminology is used almost exclusively by the left to defame. And I think the terminology and the labels that we use, I don't think we can look at them outside of the context of their connotations in America. Whereas maybe it might be descriptive to call somebody a white nationalist. I think it sort of loses something when an average person hears that and it's almost synonymous with Nazi or villain or whatever. And so I would say I'm a white person. I'm conscious of my white identity, conscious of nationalism, but I think in a way it's almost redundant to say that you're a white nationalist. We know that the word nation almost implicitly talks about ethnicity and biology. If you go back to the history of the word, a nation is not synonymous with country or state. Nation itself means a people. So I think if I call myself a nationalist, it's almost implicit in that word that it's, well, America does have a heritage of being a European country. So that a little bit about the wording, because I know a lot of people would be confused by that, but that's really how I see myself.
This is why it's Christian nationalism. We need a government of Christians. We need a conservative movement, a nationalist movement led by Christians that obey the Bible and obey God and serve Jesus Christ. Tell me why we need people in government that don't serve Jesus Christ. Is that the argument? Well, here, Nick, here's why we need Jewish people in government that don't serve Jesus. Sorry, you're never going to win that argument. You're never going to convince me that we need people in government that don't serve Jesus Christ, the Son of God. You'll never convince me of that. Insofar as there's one God and he has one Son and there is one way to salvation and one way to the truth, then that's the way that the people running our society and writing the laws need to be, and no other way. And that's not hateful and that's not prejudice. If anything, it's the opposite. You can only love your country if you want to have people running it that love God and love this world and love people. And the only people that are like that the only people as Christians we know that can be like that are fellow Christians. That's it. So this Judeo-Christian thing's got to stop. We don't live in a Judeo-Christian country, or at least if we do, we no longer want to live in that country. We want to live in a Christian country. We want to live in a Christian country with Christian rulers and Christian legislators and Christian judges and Christian law and Christians. And Jewish people can be here, but they can't make our laws. If I take 1 hour to cook a batch of cookies and Cookie Monster has 15 ovens, working 24 hours a day, every day for 5 years, how long does it take Cookie Monster to make 6 million batches of cookies? The math doesn't quite seem to add up there. I don't think you'd result in 6 million, maybe 200 to 300,000 cookies. Enough with the Jim Crow stuff. Who cares? Oh, to drink out of a different water fountain. Big fucking deal.
Would you say that me having sex with my dog is the same thing as me having sex with a black man?
No. But they would both be degenerate. Oh! I'm against race mixing. I would never do that. 9 in 10 blacks vote for Democrats. Why do they do that? God only knows. Why do they play the knockout game? Why do they punch white people in the street for no reason? Why do they rob 5 7-Elevens in 30 minutes? Why do they walk around with their pants around their ankles? I don't know. I'm not black, so it's not my experience. It's unexplainable, but this is what they do. Okay, this is how they are. It is what it is. That black vote is locked in, man. It is totally inelastic. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what they believe or who they like. It just doesn't matter. So why would we create these opportunity zones and a platinum plan and just send the military in? Do what must be done. Send the military into these black neighborhoods, make the streets safe. They'll complain about it. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. They're never going to vote for us. I'll just use whatever is at my disposal. So if Marjorie Greene came to the conference, I'm not going to say no, because then everybody's talking about AFPAC 3, and they're talking about Russia, and they're talking about Hitler, and they're talking about white identity. So we instrumentalized her for that purpose, and it worked. We got what we were looking for. Nevertheless, it's still a problem. Like, women do not belong in politics. We can recognize that we're in a situation where we have to work with what we have politically, and then by the same token, never accept for one solitary moment that we would ever have any women in politics. You understand what I'm saying? In other words, I all along never accepted Marjorie Greene as a congresswoman, or Lauren Boebert for that matter, or any of them. I am also smart enough to recognize that me not accepting them does not make them not congresswomen, or does not make them not advantageous or beneficial in some way. And that's the approach that people need to have. That's why I say trust the plan a lot. Like, you need to afford me a little bit of leeway so that I can maneuver, while understanding that fundamentally there's no compromise. If you're a right-wing guy and say, I want the most right-wing government that is like pure, and you take right-wing principles through to its logical conclusion, I want that. We're that. We're the immovable standard where, because it's true, whether it's the TV hosts or it's the politicians or it's the activists, they are constantly wheeling and dealing, thinking in terms of what's going to play with the voters, what's going to play with the independents, what's going to look good in front of the liberals, what's going to look normal, what's going to be palatable to women or something. And so it's always, that's why they're always being pulled to the left, because they're always looking for where areas to compromise, looking for concessions to give up. And we're the guys that are saying we will not move. Like, and we're not purity spiraling, we're not wackos. We're saying, hey, we want a Christian government. We want a Christian government. We want a majority white country. We want nationalism. We're okay with authoritarianism. We're not ideological. These are the things we want. We're like the immovable right-wing force in politics. I've always said we're like the right-wing flank of the GOP. And you're absolutely right. That's why the left is so successful, because they're leftists. And they're going to work every day to fight to make the government left-wing. The right-wing people are not even really rightists at all. The people on TV, the conservatives, they're just literally not even down for the cause. Like, that's for openers. We are. I hear these guys like John Doyle and them, they say, well, we're just normal. Like, we just want to appeal to like normal people. You know, you can't care about those things. We have to be radical. Like, we want to be the new normal, which is going to be different in 20 years. So it's my favorite quote by Stalin. He says, will the system conquer the revolution, or will the revolution conquer the system? That's the endless tension, and we have to be the revolution. Look at that. Look at that little sheep over there. What a stupid idiot. Look at him. He's just standing there. Hey!